Welcome to Elected. I'm your host, Luke Radel. Have you guys ever heard of main character syndrome? The Cleveland Clinic's website is quick to stipulate that this is not an actual medical definition, but it's a term that's quickly piqued curiosity online and social media over the last few years. They say that main character syndrome is defined by a series of self-centered behaviors in which you see yourself as, well, the main character in the story of your life. You, they say, are the protagonist, and everyone else is often just a sidekick or maybe a villain. You often see yourself as the most important person in the room, and you act according to the narrative of your plotline, however it is you define it. I bring all this up because Donald Trump is very much the main character of American civic life, and has been for the past 10 years when he glided down those golden escalators and changed America forever. He is virtually inescapable in the headlines. Even here in London, where I'm studying abroad this semester, at lunch yesterday, I was sitting next to somebody at the table next to me who had no idea who I was, and he was having a conversation about politics and just broke into a Trump impression, which was actually pretty good.
They're going to Mexico. They're going to China.
But that's not surprising, right? Because we see and hear a lot from Donald Trump on a daily basis, especially now that he's entered his second term as president. And that's the way he likes it. He likes to be the center of attention and almost seems antsy when the focus is on somebody else. Which brings us to yesterday, when we woke up to the heartbreaking news of a tragic mid-air collision between a passenger jet and a military Blackhawk helicopter. The 64 passengers on board the airliner that was coming in from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. all died, as well as the 3 members of the military who were on a training flight in that helicopter. There were no survivors yesterday, and they were still trying to sort through the wreckage in the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport when Donald Trump posted on Truth Social this message. Quote, "The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night," all caps. "The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good," all caps, 3 exclamation points. I think it's worth taking a moment to compare the president's not good declaration to some other words uttered by previous presidents during times of tragedy. Take, for example, Republican icon Ronald Reagan.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them, this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. Thank you.
This admittedly unflattering comparison between how Ronald Reagan handled the Challenger disaster versus how Donald Trump is handling this disaster in the first few days of his second term makes pretty apparent something that I think we've known for a while. Donald Trump doesn't talk like a president, at least not the ones that we've had in the recent past. A New York Times analysis of his campaign speeches and rallies from this most recent cycle found that he speaks at about a 4th grade level. Quote, "He has always been discursive and has often been untethered to the truth, but with the passage of time, his speeches have grown darker, harsher, longer, angrier, less focused, more profane, and increasingly fixated on the past." On that profanity note, quote, "He uses swear words 69% more often than he did when he first ran for office, a trend that could reflect what experts call disinhibition."
Let's indict the motherfucker. Let's indict.
Whoa. Put a pin in the profanity piece for a second because we will come back to it, but let's set aside the syntax of Trump's social media post. Set aside the fact that he's asking a series of questions but ending them with periods instead of question marks. Because the fact that he's on social media asking questions instead of asking them of his advisors in the White House. I mean, there's literally an entire room where presidents can go to learn more about bad situations. It's called the Situation Room.
I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
That's also the title of a book by George Stephanopoulos released before the 2024 election. He's a journalist with ABC News, and he spoke to Tom Bossert, Trump's former Homeland Security advisor, who said this.
Trump rarely sought out information from the SID room. He didn't request reports, and he never called down with questions. I asked Bossert whether it was fair to say that for Trump, Fox News Channel was as much a conduit of information as the SID room. I don't even think that's in question, he replied. I think that's 100% accurate. Then he told me something I'd never heard before. For a while, he didn't want to see what the news channels were saying. He wanted to see what the chyrons were reading, Bossert says. Chyrons, of course, are the news briefs crawling across the bottom of the TV screen. He wanted the chyrons captured and printed, and so the sit room would do that. They would produce for him books of chyron prints. Surely one of the most prosaic tasks ever required of the highly trained intelligence officers serving in the White House.
That's right, instead of allowing the Situation Room to get him real answers to the questions he had using their ingrained network of sources across multiple intelligence agencies, Donald Trump had them print out cable news chyrons. Honestly, I feel like I need to say something to the president right now, but let me do it in a way that he'll understand. Cue up the Fox News alert. This just in, that's crazy, bro. Please stop. So even though Trump didn't get the answers to his questions from his Truth Social following, that didn't stop him from heading into the White House press briefing room yesterday morning to speak with reporters. It's a place where presidents in the past have tried to console a healing nation.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own.
But also where this president did this just 4 short years ago.
So, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
So it's time to play a little game. Which do you think will happen in the briefing room? The answer is the second one. Trump started with a sign of respect for the lives lost.
I'd like to request a moment of silence for the victims and their families, please.
After the moment of silence, Trump had some prepared remarks.
We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy Potomac, it was a cold night, cold water.
Before pivoting to the blame game.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas.
So what are Trump's pretty good ideas? Bashing his opponents.
I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse.
Then President Trump read a lengthy passage from the FAA website in order to demean diversity and people with disabilities.
Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite.
Now, try to remember that passage from earlier about profanity, because that's going to come into play in a moment when the president takes potshots at the former transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg.
The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Now, at the 16-minute mark, the president has yet to take a single question, but he is offering this insightful analysis.
This is going to be studied, but it just seems to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened.
So now we've heard from the president, as well as his secretaries of transportation and defense, his vice president, all saying the same thing. DEI is responsible for this mid-air collision, this tragedy over the Potomac. Let's hear how he answers the first question from the press on that statement.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been.
Time out.
So let me get this straight. The president spent this entire press briefing talking about diversity practices at the FAA in connection to this mid-air collision, and then when asked for evidence that those procedures were actually responsible for the collision, he was like, I don't know, but it's a good guess, right? You might be thinking to yourself, but what about the families of those who lost their lives? Wouldn't they be a little upset by the fact that the president is spitballing with their loved one's cause of death? CNN's Caitlin Collins asked him.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Blackhawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They
to
are
hear you
a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm
blaming-
surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming air traffic?
Please.
You might think that's a bad look, insulting a reporter for asking an excellent question that he just didn't like. You might think it can't possibly get any worse. At least he's not joking about swimming through the crash site.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a
first
plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me what's the site? The water?
Or to meet
You
with
want
the
me to go
first
swimming?
responders down?
And the hits just keep on coming.
When asked why he was politicizing this tragedy to baselessly blame one of his favorite buzzwords, Trump had a simple answer.
That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
And look, far be it for me to argue against common sense, but I would like to argue affirmatively for something else, something that I think is lacking from this presidency and even from this age in our modern politics. Because it wasn't that long ago that someone trying to politicize a national tragedy when bodies are still being pulled out of the water would be unheard of, would be gross and awful. And hopefully it's still that way. But if it isn't, we need to bring back something other than common sense. We need to bring back common decency. And yeah, you can slap that on a chyron. Thanks for watching. Guys, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all of your support. This is my 200th YouTube video on the Elected News channel, and it just so happens to coincide with us hitting 1,000 subscribers. So I really appreciate you joining our little community where we get to talk about news and politics. I encourage you to turn on the notification bell, like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment down below, tell me what you think, because we've got a lot to process over the next few years. Thanks for watching.